this incredibly enlightening video, a renowned researcher, Andrew Huberman, delves deep into the realms of boundless energy. With his extensive knowledge on neuroplasticity, Huberman presents a captivating roadmap for breaking free from the clutches of fatigue.
It is very hard to control the mind with the mind, and I think a simple rule that people can adopt is when your mind is not where you want it to be, look to your body. Use the body to shift the mind. It's a simple equation. It's sometimes hard to do because thoughts can be so all-encompassing. But when your mind is not where you want it to be, if you don't feel as happy or you're obsessing, you need to go to a mechanical system in the body, because if you do that, you'll shift the chemicals that are released in your brain in a way that will allow you to regain control of the steering wheel.
By unraveling the intricate workings of the brain, he unveils a treasure trove of simple yet profound techniques that can optimize our sleep patterns, our nutritional choices, and exercise routines. Huberman's teaching empower us to embrace a life where exhaustion is a thing of the past.
I mean, obviously there's a tolerance that's built up with drinking a lot, but I believe the number is approximately 8% of people have a mutation in a gene such that when they drink alcohol, it increases their dopamine levels very quickly, and they get euphoric. They feel great. These are the people like that character in Mad Men, the Don Draper character, like he would go out and just get plastered, and the next day, he's all fresh and ready. And part of that is tolerance. But in certain Scandinavian countries, Northern European countries, this gene tends to be more prevalent. And these people are the people that can just keep drinking and drinking. They feel great when they drink, whereas most people, they feel disinhibited at the beginning. You have a couple drinks, the forebrain shuts down a little bit because that's what it does. They start talking more, but if they keep drinking, they're blacking out, they're stumbling, they're slurring their words. This 8% of people, by way of this genetic mutation, alcohol affects them very differently. It offsets all that sedative property, and they could just go and go and go. This is the person who's doing a case a day or at the party and just shot for shot and just looking like they're improving in function. And obviously they're not.
Especially guys, young guys have to be careful of, which is nowadays the availability of pornography is nothing like it used to be, right? Someone used to have a magazine or a video. Now there's access to pornography is just, a couple, thumb taps to a couple people. And people can get very, young people can develop a lot of their arousal template to very extreme experiences, right? Because of the availability of extreme porn and never actually have any real world experiences.
Yes.
So if you think about it, their brains are becoming wired up to become aroused watching other people have sex.
I'm a big proponent of a practice that some people call yoga nidra, N-I-D-R-A, which involves lying down and just listening to a sort of like a relaxation script. I do this for 10 to 30 minutes a day for two reasons. One is it gets you better at relaxing and it makes you a better sleeper, makes it easier to fall and stay asleep. The other reason is there was a study done at University of Copenhagen in Denmark showing that these 10 to 30 minute deep relaxation bouts, which are not meditation, you're not focusing on anything, you're actively unfocusing, in fact, they can enhance some of the dopamine in the brain circuits that are useful for action and action planning and learning. And so if I don't sleep well, I'll do a 30-minute yoga nidra first thing when I wake up, or sometimes in the afternoon. I find it very restorative. I fundamentally disagree with my colleagues that you can't restore sleep that you missed. I don't know about restoring the sleep state, but I know that cognitive function can be enhanced and even restored by these periods of deep rest, which are different than meditation. If you're interested in this, that you just put into YouTube. There are a number of apps out there. There are a lot of different scripts. Some people like one voice or another. I happen to like the voice of, her last name is Desai, D-E-S-A-I, and she has an app as well. But if you go to YouTube and you say Yoga Nidra, Desai, there are a bunch of scripts. Some are 10 minutes, some are 30 minutes. They involve a little bit of the kind of, let's be fair, sort of a new agey kind of language around that's kind of puts off certain people, but really all it is deep relaxation. And that has been shown to enhance these neurochemicals, which can enhance the neuroplasticity process. So sleep is always best, but if you can't sleep, sometimes doing these deep relaxation scripts can be almost as good.
If you look at sort of who people select to have sex with versus who people select to try and form long-term relationships with them, I mean, there are many men who would not choose to be with the woman that is most attractive to everybody because they don't have the confidence they could keep her.
That's
right?
a good point.
Even if she's not a flirt and wouldn't be looking, right? Even if she didn't have a wandering eye. Some men deliberately wouldn't want to be with the most beautiful. People tend to match up pretty closely in terms of attractiveness. Pretty closely. Not always.
It's not because the pretty ones are airheads.
But you asked about income, and I want to make sure that, because I had David Buss on my podcast, and he's really the expert on this, so we're going to have to fact check this with him.
Yeah.
But yes, it's true that resource potential is an important variable because people have to think about safety and childcare and a number of things.
It's the only way I have
but women
a
work
wife.
too, right? Women can work too, right? They can opt to work and make money. But more important than any other feature across all cultures is that the woman reports that she sought someone who is kind to them. Not necessarily kind to everybody, but kind to them, right? Kind to them. The reason I encourage people to get sunlight in their eyes, especially early in the day, is that it helps wake you up, it improves your mood, it improves hormone output, it improves focus. It's good for so many aspects of
But how
biology.
do I do
and
it
it helps
without
you
hurting
and it
my
helps you
eyes?
sleep at night. Okay, so what you want to do, people have different levels of sensitivity. You want to look in the general direction of the sun.
Okay.
If it's low in the sky, it's no problem. You could literally look at it like this. Now, the higher it gets in the sky, the more imposing it is, and you'll want to close your eyes. If it forces you to blink, you need to look away from it a little bit. Indirect light is fine on a really clear day.
Yeah.
If it's very, very bright and you need to blink. I'd say take your sunglasses off for doing this. Eyeglasses and contacts are fine. And after, 2-3 minutes, you're good. And if you're walking to work in the morning, it's a nice sunny morning, but the sun, is New York, so a lot of the sun's blocked by these big buildings, you just get the indirect sunlight.
And that's okay too?
That's okay. But through a window, these tinted windows that are everywhere here, or through a windshield, it's not going to happen. It's just never going to set this mechanism in the ways you need. So if watching a sunset, you can literally watch it.
Yeah, I do 5 nidras a week, 10 to 30 minutes each. If I haven't slept, if I wake up and I don't feel rested, I don't have the luxury, unfortunately, of just going back to sleep most of the time. So I'll do a 30-minute or a 10-minute, one of these deep relaxation scripts. And I swear I wake up, I come out of that. Sometimes I fall asleep during it, sometimes I don't, but I come out of that feeling completely ready to go. That's my experience. We've studied this in my lab, and people go into very deep states of relaxation and brain waves that mimic sleep. If in the afternoon I'm feeling groggy, I might do it in the afternoon. And if I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm ruminating and I'm having a hard time turning off my mind and I can't sleep, I will do this instead. So just very quickly, there's the so-called secure attached style. This typically emerges in childhood when there's a very predictable caregiver-caree relationship between child and most often mother, but it can be father too or other caregiver. Just so happens that the classic experiments were done on mothers because this was in the 1970s and there weren't as many reverse role, homes, etc. There were some, but not as many as there are now. So that's one style of attachment. The parent leaves, the child gets a little distraught, but then can distract itself doing other things or just simply do other things because they have a high degree of intrinsic knowledge, not the thought, but intrinsic calm. The autonomic nervous system doesn't feel any need to ramp up because the mom returns. Then there's the so-called insecure attachment styles, and there are a bunch of different ones, but those are the ones where it's really stressful when the parent leaves. It's not clear they're going to come back, and when they come back, it's not clear that they're going to reestablish the bond, the child will feel supported, etc. Here's what's fascinating. Those same neural circuits are repurposed for romantic attachment in adult life. The same circuits, which shouldn't surprise us. I mean, why would the brain throw away valuable circuitry? But this whole Freudian notion that, childhood attachment styles map onto adult attachment styles, that's real. That's physiological. His name is Ryan Suave, who's doing really incredible work in the trauma and addiction community. He's a trauma therapist and board certified therapist, using Nidra as a component of the treatment for trauma and addiction. And of course, there are other components to those treatments, but for people that are interested in trauma release and are working through things, whether or not it's because of plasticity or restoration of these neurochemicals, he's had tremendously positive results. We're actually thinking about running a study with an inpatient population that he works with out in Colorado. My lab studied this process. For me, it's also just easier than meditation. because meditation involves concentration, and I'm spending most of the day trying to concentrate. Along those lines about focus, a lot of people say, like, what are your tools for focus? So I'll just mention that the things that I do that you may or may not find useful. Okay, so they range from pretty extreme to rather benign. When I was in college, no joke, I actually used to chain myself to my chair. We didn't have phones back then. And I would throw the key across the room to the point where I would have to drag my chair across the room in order to unlock myself. My goal at that time was to get through large volumes of reading, and there was a lot of memorization, and I found myself just getting way too distracted, and I would try and find the right amount of coffee. Did it make sense to listen to mellow music or like really intense music? And it was so variable that finally what I found was, basically I'm going to just take this to the extreme and just chain myself to the chair. That's a little extreme. I was 19 years old then. I'm not sure I recommend that. And also it's a fire hazard, I guess, if you had to get out quick.
One of the key takeaways from that book, Dopamine Nation, that I've incorporated in my own life is that there are certain activities like cold water that create long-lasting arcs of dopamine. Those can be very useful for putting us into long-lasting motivational states. So these are not big peaks and troughs. These are the pain of the cold water followed by this long, long arc of dopamine. Wonderful. It's kind of an antidepressant, positive motivator, natural stimulus. I always say if you don't have access to an ice bath, cold showers, yes, will work. If you have a shower that doesn't get cold enough, keep in mind that the original studies showing this dopamine increase had people get into 60-degree water, which is not that cold, 60-degree Fahrenheit, for 45 minutes to an hour. So your water bill might go up, but you could just draw a kind of cool bath and get in that up to the neck. So, because I realize there are sometimes some cost barriers to people. Not everyone has an ice bath.
Nowadays, I confess that I lock my phone in a gun safe. This has nothing to do with firearms. It's just that it has a timer on it. So you can actually time the safe, and I just lock it in there, and I turn on a program on the internet, a Freedom, that just shuts down my internet access, and I write down anything that I want to look up later. And I will be honest, I hate this process. It is painful. It creates a ton of anxiety. Being away from the phone promotes anxiety. I get it. But what I find is I can accomplish more in a 60-minute bout of no distraction than I can in 2 days of broken work. So that's what I do. A lot of people have asked, like, what about diet and supplementation? For me, being a little bit hungry actually helps me focus. But if I'm too hungry, obviously, then I'm going to think about food. I love to eat. So I'll generally capture that mid-morning session as a key time, and then I eat after that. And my lab doesn't work on supplementation. I just want to be fair. Always, of course, check with your doctor. I'm not promoting supplementation, but I think there are a few things that can enhance focus for occasional use that are much safer than most of the stuff that people are out there using. People look to powerful stimulants. I drink caffeine. So hydration and caffeine work very well to enhance focus. A lot of people overdo the caffeine.
Well, we can make some general statements about sleep that dovetail with the alcohol thing. And look, I'm not anti-alcohol. I don't have an alcohol problem. I have a drink every once in a while, no big deal. But I'm one of these people that can either do it or not do it.
Yeah.
And it is, whereas some people, they really enjoy alcohol.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people. It's just never been my thing. But in any case, sleep, meaning getting enough quality sleep, 80% of the nights of your life. And I always say the other 20%, just try and make the fact that you're not getting enough sleep for fun reasons, out with friends, relationship, like ideally it's not because you're lying in bed stressing or et cetera. But try and get enough quality sleep 80% of the nights of your life. How much sleep do you need? Enough to feel rested during the day. Maybe you need a short nap. Napping's great, as long as it doesn't screw up your nighttime sleep.
How long should a nap be?
No longer than 90 minutes. And if you can't nap, don't worry about it. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, you don't have to be a napper. But a lot of people need a nap in the early afternoon or late afternoon in order to reset. That's totally normal. It has to do with body temperature regulation. As your body temperature goes up in the afternoon and then starts to drop, you tend to get a little bit sleepy. One way to avoid the afternoon crash, by the way, is don't drink caffeine for the first hour and a half to 2 hours after you wake up. Let a bunch of the sleepy molecules get cleared away. Sleepy molecules, things like adenosine, blah, blah, blah. And then drink your caffeine. At first, it's kind of painful to do, but you'll just go all day feeling great. It's pretty fantastic. Now, alcohol disrupts the architecture, the quality of your sleep. You can fall asleep, but the sleep you get is not restorative. And the first part of your night when you sleep is really for repair of the body, growth hormone release, etc. The second half is when two things happen. One is you tend to have dreams that are very emotionally laden, but you are paralyzed. You have sleep atonia. You can't move, and it's a kind of trauma therapy. If you ever had like a disturbing interaction or something's bothering you, if you get a few nights good sleep, you're like, okay, like it's like water under the bridge. If you don't, people tend to kind of maintain the emotional load of things.
4-to-1 volume of water to caffeine is what I actually do. And a lot of people say, well, then you have to go to the bathroom all the time. Well, this is kind of fun because then we can get right back into brain circuits. So there are several studies that have shown that the reason you wake up in the middle of the night when you have to urinate, when you have to go to the bathroom, is because there's actually a circuit, neurons that connect your bladder to your brainstem and wake up your brain. This is when kids are really young and these circuits aren't developed. This is why they wet their beds when they're really little. So that circuit wakes you up. And believe it or not, there are communities of first responders, and people in certain areas doing certain kinds of military work and whatnot that understand that hydration, part of the reason it makes you alert is because of the cellular hydration. We hear 70% or whatever your brain is and body are water. A lot of the alertness that you get from hydration is also because your bladder is full and it stimulates alertness.